All right, big news for the 49ers with the legal tampering window set to open tomorrow. That means all this free agency stuff is really going to start rolling. Should be a crazy day in the NFL tomorrow. Ahead of that opening, the 49ers have made yet another re-signing, and this one is a big one. This one, Tashaun Gipson, who stepped into that safety role this past season and ran with it. The veteran, the former Pro Bowler, was one of the better safeties in football. The 49ers have brought him back for $2.9 million, a really good price, as I'll break down in this video. And this has the 49ers set up, entering the legal tampering period with Gipson under contract, so he will not touch free agency. The 49ers did not want that to happen after he decided not to retire. And the 49ers now have some money, some spending money to play with as they enter this exciting week. So a lot happening on Sunday evening. I was flying across country today. You saw me rushing through the airport as soon as the Tashaun Gipson news came down. Made a quick little video there for you. We've got an article coming up on The Athletic here any minute. I will link you to that. We'll put that one up on the screen when it's ready to go. But for now, we're going to start talking about free agency, Tashaun Gipson, the big signing for the 49ers, and of course, Colton McKivitz, who signed with the 49ers a couple days ago. Those are the two big re-signings here before the official start of free agency. But $2.9 million for Tashaun Gipson. And, you know, this is, to me, a potential steal for the 49ers. The reason they were able to get him this cheap is because he's 32 years old. He's going to be 33 in August, so he'll be 33 for next season. That obviously is old in NFL terms. And Gipson had begun to show his age prior to this past season. Then the 49ers signed him to the practice squad, and they activated him and promoted him to the full-time roster before the start of the season. I'm actually trying to remember if it was actually – it might not have been a practice squad signing. They actually signed him to the 90-man roster. He wasn't expected to make the 53-man, but he did make that 53-man roster, and he ran with it. He was certainly not expected to start for the duration of the season. That was the really impressive thing. Jimmy Ward was hurt, hamstring injury, IR, out the first 4 weeks of the season. But Gipson played so well throughout those first 4 weeks of the year that Jimmy Ward, when he came back, Kyle Shanahan said, you know what, you're going to have to play nickelback because Tashaun Gipson and Talanoa Hufanga are playing an excellent 1 and 2 safety role for this football team. And Ward obviously was not all too happy about that because it was a contract year for Ward. Safeties make more than nickelbacks. But Kyle Shanahan, according to Jimmy Ward, said, would you rather ride the bench? So Gipson played so well at age 32 that it allowed the 49ers to deploy Ward at a bigger position of need at nickelback. And Ward got better at nickel. Now Ward is a free agent as well. So what does this mean for Jimmy Ward? Well, Ward has been very open about wanting to rather play safety. Because if he signs as a safety somewhere, he'll probably make more money. But Ward has also been frank in other interviews. He was on IG Live, which I consider a fan interview, but he said it on Monday. He said that there is a possibility that he resigns with the 49ers at nickelback. So even though Ward would rather play safety than nickel, he is acknowledging there's a chance that he's back at nickelback, which would be a discount relative to the safety rate for the 49ers and would be good news for them. That's obviously something that they're interested in. So we'll see if the longest tenured 49er stays with them. This Tashaun Gipson news, though, means that they're going to be looking to definitely sign Ward as a nickel. We already knew that's the way that they were leaning. John Lynch had talked about that at the NFL Combine. And this is obviously good news for the 49ers and more good news. The best case scenario would be if Jimmy Ward signed on as a nickel for that discount. And with Gipson aboard at $2.9 million, that is some cost-effective spending for the San Francisco 49ers. I am going to show you the salary cap sheet right now because I think this is going to help you visualize how this team has divided its spending, how it will continue to divide its spending heading here into free agency, because it's really important to have a bigger picture look at things. So this is the salary cap sheet. I could also open the roster builder, but maybe the roster builder would be fun to look at actually here in a little bit. But yeah, I've already slotted Tashaun Gipson into this one at $2.9 million per year. Now, Aaron Wilson in the Houston media, he does a lot of national reporting, and he tweeted that there might be some void years on Gipson's contract to spread out this cap hit beyond just 2023. If that's the case, then over the cap's number, which is 2.9 million, might be amended. The cap hit might be a little bit lower. As of right now, though, I have 50 players under contract for the 49ers, counting Jauan Jennings, who must still sign his ERFA, exclusive rights free agent tender. With those 50 players, 49ers have about $4 million on the 53-man salary cap. Now, the offseason salary cap is going to be a little bit different. In the offseason, you count obviously the 90-man roster is what you're counting, but you only count the top 51 because you can't count the whole 90-man roster or else you're going to be over the cap. So the 49ers actually, if you include Jauan Jennings, have only one more signing to make before the top 51 rule kicks into effect. And if only the top 51 contracts count against the salary cap, well, then you're going to start to have displacement at 52, 53, 54. If contract number 54 is greater than the 51st most valuable contract prior to that, well, it's going to kick out the 51st one, and you're just going to slot that way. The shorter story to really illustrate what's going to be happening here is that each subsequent signing won't impact the 49ers cap as much as the signings up to this point have been impacting them. That being said, you still look at the room. This is the 53-man cap that I have on the screen. You look at that room. You look at the over the cap room. If we go to over the cap, let's go here. San Francisco 49ers salary cap, you got $3.755 million. So that number is fairly similar to the one that I had. It means that the 49ers don't have a whole lot of spending money. And that's when we get to my build your roster tool that I made with Matt Barrows. Why don't we pull that one up right now? Because on this build your roster tool, you will be able to make some of the moves that you might want to make, but you'll also find that you won't be able to make all of the moves because the 49ers have limited money. So build your roster. The 49ers have already re-signed Colton McKivitz. We're estimating at $2 million per year. That's down here. I'll highlight that for you. Now at safety, they brought back Tashaun Gipson. Let's see how good our estimate, how close our estimate was. So you drop down at the safety spot under Hufanga, highlight Tashaun Gipson. Oh my gosh, we are good. We estimated Tashaun Gipson to be at $3 million per year. It's actually going to be 2.9, and maybe they can get that cap hit a little bit smaller. But pat on the back for Matt Barrows, because he's the one that estimated these contracts. He did that part of it. I designed the rest of the tool, but we plugged Tashaun Gipson in here for $3 million opposite Hufanga. And on the 53-man roster that you can build here, you have $14 million of room, but this is just kind of a builder tool. There are some players that are not on here that I don't think are going to make the 53-man. So we've already dealt with some of that top 51 displacement. Anyway, the 49ers Build Your Roster tool is available on The Athletic, so you can check that out. But why don't we talk a little bit more about Tashaun Gipson? He's going to be 33. So the 49ers here, the bet here with Tashaun Gipson, giving him $2.9 million per year, he had top 2 metrics. I'll mention what that means at the bottom of the screen. Tashaun Gipson gave up a 55.3 passer rating into his coverage last season, which was number 2 of all NFL safeties. And Tashaun Gipson had a 2.9% missed tackle rate last season, which was the best of all NFL safeties. His run defense grade was at the top 2 from Pro Football Focus. This guy was a top 2 player across the advanced metrics board last year. Was he a top 2 safety as far as impact goes? Maybe not. Fine. Say that he was top 15. Say that he was top 10. Say that he was top 20. If you look at the safety market, those guys are still making a whole lot more than 2.9 million. But again, top 2 metrics for Tashaun Gipson at age 32. And he's making 2.9 million this year. That's a good deal for the 49ers. It's low investment here. Low investment, really high reward. You got the really high reward off the league minimum last season from Tashaun Gipson. So, what kind of bet are they making? Well, they're paying him a little bit more than the minimum. And they're betting that Father Time is not going to hit him right in the face here in 2023 because he's going to be 33 years old. But it seemed that Father Time was already slowing Gipson down prior to last season. He was sitting on the couch in August wondering, is this it? I'm not, nobody's calling me. I can't sign anywhere. Then the 49ers called. I believe it was after Ward's hamstring injury. And when the 49ers called, Gipson showed up and he started playing really well. And Tashaun Gipson took over that starting spot in week 1 and just went on a blistering tear. He was available for the football team throughout the whole season. The 49ers, who had struggled to notch interceptions, Jaquiski Tartt had 4 picks through 7 years with the team. Tashaun Gipson had 5 interceptions in one season for the 49ers. So all of a sudden, they started picking the ball off. They had 20 interceptions as a team, which led the NFL last year. Gipson led them with 5. The reason that he was number 2 in the NFL among safeties, passer rating allowed, it was in large part because of those 5 interceptions. He was great on run defense. I mean, again, this was a top 2 safety by the advanced metrics for the 49ers. And, we talk about him rediscovering that fountain of youth. At age 32, his defensive backfield mate, the other safety, was Talanoa Hufanga, age 22. 10 years younger than Tashaun Gipson. And they talked about this a lot. The Gipson-Talanoa Hufanga relationship was one for the ages because Hufanga broke into the league as a starter, as an all-pro in his first year starting, thanks in large part to the mentorship of Gipson. And Gipson revived what had been a Pro Bowl career. He was 2014. He was a Pro Bowler, thanks in large part to the youthful exuberance of Talanoa Hufanga. And it all came to a head after the 49ers clinched in Seattle. This is from the locker room in Seattle, where the media tried to interview Talanoa Hufanga, but he refused to do the interview without Tashaun Gipson present. And then the media tried to interview Tashaun Gipson, but he refused to do the interview without Talanoa Hufanga present. So they reached a compromise. They were both there for the interview. Let's have a look into this excellent relationship that the 49ers have now perpetuated with this re-signing.
Fix his collar, though. Fix his collar.
Fix your collar.
Fix your collar, yes.
Okay. Mama didn't raise you right.
I'm trying to help you out here.
I appreciate you. I like his mom. This is Shawnee. And Momo. That's my nickname. That's Momo. So
just looking back at this whole journey to this title, you two have been the safety tandem this year. Every time that you've made a big play, you've credited him. I feel every time you made a big play, credit him. What does it mean to kind of bring it together defensively to this moment?
Honestly, this is how we play. Like, we really have a trust in each other to go out there and make big plays, and really it's just complementary football. When one half of the field is taken down and shut down, the other half is shut down. That's where how great defenses are made. You know what I mean?
To credit him, man, obviously, being able to come out here and play with a guy like this, man, you have no choice but to come and step your game up, man. I feed off his energy since week 1. He's been my guy, man, and, it's just, you can't let a guy down. He playing like this, man, lights out. So, I got to hold up my end of the bargain. And obviously, it's my favorite player, man, I play with. So, and I'm not just saying that, man, it's true.
What are your emotions right now? You got picked up off the street sort of late in the cycle. And did you expect that you were going to be here? How are you feeling right now?
I'm overwhelmed right now, man. It's just like a beautiful feeling. It's hard to be able to say, to be playing in the playoffs, man. I've been in the league 11 years, man. I've only been in the playoff twice, so that tell you, obviously, man, it's hard getting here, man. But when you have a great group of guys around you, man, and I credit the guys around me, man. Most definitely Huff, man. When I first got here, just helping me understand the defense and things like that, man. So obviously, man, it's an exciting time, man. It's exciting to be sharing this backfield with him, man, and obviously watching him grow. And he should have 5 picks right now. I want y'all to know that right now. So
just so you guys know, he took my juice away before the play. He grabbed my hands and took away my hands because sometimes he don't have the best hands. He be coming up to me during the game, asking me for the hands. I'm just playing, but he did. Yeah, I should have 5.
There we go, man. Don't
I
listen.
should have 5.
I feel really early in the season, you were aware of how many picks Tashaun had. You said, he's got 27 or 28. I'm trying to help him get to 30. When did you first, did you look that up, or did you guys have a conversation about wanting to build that interception total?
Definitely, I've been on, and then, just the production that he's had, but then he also made me aware before the season started, and I was like, man, I'm going to be on top of it. And so, once he got the first one early on against Seattle, I was just kind of making sure I was ticking away. And then once he got that one, I think I was the first one to, see him right on the sideline, their sideline, actually, just because I knew it was such a big moment. I'm, yelling at him, that's 30, that's 30. And then he was just he blacked out for a sec. He once he just be sprinting to the end zone. I've never seen a dude run faster to the end zone after a celebration than this guy. I'd be like, calm down, bro.
It's excitement, man. It's excitement, man. It's just energy that I feed off of, young guys like this, man. He keep me young, obviously, man. He truly keep me young. But, it's just a blessing, like I say, man. I credit that first one to him, obviously. He definitely had his hands on that, but, it's just a pleasure, man. I truly say, man, it's so fun playing this season, man. Not just in this defense, but when you have guys that you truly have a bond with, man, you have genuine love for, it makes playing football more fun, man. And I'm just having fun right now.
What do you credit Tashaun for?
Man, I think just the biggest thing for him is coming in and like just really changing my perspective. Like he has so many years on the game, which he really understands like what it takes to be a great national football player. You know what I mean? So for me, I just want to keep learning and be a sponge and absorb as much knowledge from him. And like he said, like I just got a lot of energy, but sometimes I need to get a little bit more knowledge in my head. So that's where he kind of takes me back and really credits. That's where I give him the credit because he really made me see it from a different perspective. For sure.
What's the most surprising thing you learned about Tashaun?
Tashaun?
All right, there we have it. 49ers, Tashaun Gipson, Talanoa Hufanga. What a special moment. That was in the locker room in Seattle after the 49ers clinched the NFC West title on December 15th. My favorite quote, and I just tweeted it out at Lombardi himself. Plug, shameless plug. Quote, he keeps me young, man. He truly keeps me young. Again, Gipson, 32, Hufanga, 22. What a special pairing the 49ers have in that backfield. I mean, why don't we look at this through the terms of the 49ers depth chart to see how well constructed this is, how much more work they need to do before the start of the regular season. Pop this sucker open, take a look at it. Here you go. Gipson, Hufanga. I put Gipson in there now. So, I mean, previously, before this signing, I had George Odom in at first string, but obviously Odom is a guy who was awesome on special teams, led the league in special teams tackles, but Hufanga and Gipson are your starting safeties. Now, there's a lot of people saying, oh, Jesse Bates is a free agent. Guys, again, do I have to show you this again, the build your roster tool? This is not a video game. This is not Madden. Say that you did add Jesse Bates on top of everything. Look, at the top, we have 49ers, $14 million in cap space, all right? We'll sign Jesse Bates. We still have a lot of players to sign. Oh, my gosh, we're negative $1.45 million because Jesse Bates is going to cost you probably something like $15 million per year. So everybody, thinks that this is like a Christmas wish list that they can add to with impunity, but it doesn't work that way in the real NFL. You have to find an efficient way to build the roster. And I'm sorry, you can't argue with how good Tashaun Gipson was last year. Again, the number 2 opposing passing rating allowed and the number 1 missed tackle rate amongst all safeties. Better than Jesse Bates, better than anybody, better than Minkah Fitzpatrick in the NFL. That came from Tashaun Gipson. So if you're the 49ers, you obviously give him a little bit of a pay raise. That's what they did. You obviously make the bet that he's going to be able to stay young entering this season. And, hey, that quote, he keeps me young, talking about Talanoa Hufanga, that partnership is working well. There's a reason why you've seen teams in the past that have just tried to load up on stars without building a good, solid core culture-wise. You've seen those teams flame out. Look at the Eagles back in 2011, right? The 49ers beat them with the Justin Smith forced fumble there at the end of the game. That was an all-star team. They just signed a bunch of guys. But the way that you get these teams to really gel and be cohesive and morph into these forces that can truly be greater than the sum of their parts is if you have guys that get along. And you saw Tashaun Gipson, Talanoa Hufanga. I mean, this is beautiful stuff. These two guys right next to each other, refusing to do an interview without the other one present. Tashaun Gipson saying, this guy keeps me young. Talanoa Hufanga saying, this guy helps me hone my craft, becomes an all-pro in just his second season, coming out of the 5th round in 2021. The 49ers have that vibe going in their defensive backfield. This was the best year for the 49ers secondary since Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch got there. Keep in mind that the 49ers were the number 1 defense in football this past year. Undisputably. I mean, they were number 1 across the board, really, in all these metrics. But they did that despite the fact their defensive line had an objectively down year. Outside of Nick Bosa, it wasn't a great year for the defensive line. Now, we could talk a little bit about the other guys. Charles Omenihu had a lot of pressures this year. I mean, Omenihu was a good defensive lineman, but the sacks yet weren't there. I don't know what that's going to mean for his market, how much money he's going to sign for elsewhere. But the main point is the 49ers need bookends for Nick Bosa because Omenihu is going to be a free agent. Maybe they re-sign him, maybe they don't. They need a better interior pass rush. We'll see if they do that internally through somebody like Clea Davis. But even despite all these needs up front, they were still the number 1 defense in football. And so much of that happened because Tashaun Gipson showed up and triggered a domino effect in the 49ers' favor. Lockdown safety at a level that they hadn't seen yet in the Shanahan era, right? With all those interceptions and with that great run defense. I mean, he blew up some screen passes. I think there was one against the Seahawks where he took down a runner in the backfield. I think it was K9, Kenneth Walker, who he tracked down in the backfield. He didn't play like he was 32 years old. But that domino effect, only began with Gipson manning safety. You also had the flex down to nickelback from Jimmy Ward, and Ward got better as the year went along. So they plugged holes in their secondary, and they're able to overcome the down year from the defensive line. So this is a big re-sign for the 49ers because they get it at an affordable price and they can maintain some of those dynamics. Now what you need to do entering this new league year is fortify that defensive line. Your linebackers are already the best in football. You're getting ready to run it back with a secondary. You've got Charvarius Ward. You got Diamondo Lenore. You see what you do with Emmanuel Mosley. You can do all that. You'll see, Jimmy Ward, that's a big question mark. But obviously you got some rookies in the pipeline like Samuel Womack. But, you're on your way to taking care of the back end with this Tashaun Gipson re-signing. Then you got to turn your focus to that D-line and see if you can get better as a defense if you're the 49ers heading into 2023. It's going to be fascinating to see if they are indeed able to do that. I have something for you right here, and that is our article on The Athletic. Let's pop this one open. Let's get it up on the screen. And let's take a look at Tashaun Gipson's picture because he's the headliner of this article. Here we go. Adding it to the stream. There we go. Beautiful. So this is it. San Francisco 49ers 2023 free agency tracker, which we have just gone live with. This is going to be something that we update with every transaction that the 49ers make over this coming busy week. Now, those of you who are watching right now, make sure to note this. The legal tampering period starts at 9 a.m. Pacific time Monday, tomorrow. I'll be live like I was last year. We're going to be tracking this. You're going to watch me work, do whatever. Be ready for the start of the legal tampering period tomorrow. And we're going to be keeping this sheet up on The Athletic up to date. Here is the analysis on the Tashaun Gipson signing. I'm copying, I'm pasting this, I'm putting it into the chat section for you. So check that out. And Mike, if you're watching, Mike, if you could toss that into the description, that would be great. Let's get people to subscribe to The Athletic. Now is the best time to do it because free agency is going to be wild. It's going to be, the Niners are going to be trying to play chess while everybody else is playing checkers. That's the goal of every team. But the 49ers have done a lot of good stuff over the past few years to build the roster to where it is right now. So we'll see if they can perpetuate that chess, not checkers approach moving forward. So everybody hit that subscribe button. Get ready for the live at the start of the legal tampering period tomorrow. We're going to have ourselves a hell of a day. We're going to have ourselves a hell of a week. And we will go ahead and check out some questions here in a little bit. But I still have a couple more things to talk about. The Jimmy Ward question is obviously one about the nickelback position. He's going to test his market this week. He can start talking to teams officially next week. We'll have a better idea of what's going to happen with Jimmy Ward. And we talk about Jake Brendel, the center. I made a video about him earlier today. The talk about Brendel right now is that multiple teams are going to be interested, including the Houston Texans. I mean, a lot of teams looking for centers, including, I believe, the Jets as well. So when you look at the 49ers center, it's another position that they had a veteran start, kind of like Tashaun Gipson, not the pedigree of Gipson, but I think it might be equally or more important that they get Jake Brendel back. And if you don't have Jake Brendel back, you better have a contingency plan. We talk about Ryan Kelly from the Colts. He might be up for a trade. That's going to be a big cap hit unless they cut him and then you could sign him for less. I don't know if that's going to fit into the 49ers plans. I put Brendel into the Gipson boat as a player that was very effective within the context of the 49ers system last year, that you might be able to sign back at a relative discount to other really good offensive linemen. I mean, Brendel, for example, is number 3 in pass blocking efficiency last year. And we know that he could block in space because that was his forte entering the season. So, I mean, this guy is exactly what the 49ers need at center. And maybe, just maybe, since he only has one starting season under his belt, since he is, now on the wrong side of the age of 30, maybe this is a chance for the 49ers to also get a discount. They got a discount on Gipson relative to production. Maybe you get one for Brendel relative to production. Although with Brendel, you do have other teams interested. So the 49ers better start getting those contingency plans ready. Ben Jones from the Titans failed physical, but it sounds like he wants to play next year. I don't think that that's like a glaring issue. He's 33, though, so you'd get older than Jake Brendel. And, Kyle Shanahan's going to be really particular with the centers that he brings in. He brought in the prototype himself, a guy who'd played for him before in Atlanta and in Cleveland in 2014, and Alex Mack. Brought him in 2021, but then Mack retired. Brendel, I think when you look at his skill set, is the Shanahan prototype as well. I mean, talk about a run blocker, somebody who's really mobile, came out of college several years ago at 286. It's really light. We saw him block Budda Baker in the open field. He can make those difficult blocks in space that Shanahan requires, which is unusual for centers, but he's learned how to anchor since then. It's the big thing. Brendel's put on weight over the years. He's been hurt over the years, but he's used it to, the time to refine his craft. And I mean, he was holding his ground as well as anybody, even against Fletcher Cox in the NFC Championship game. So I think that he really fits what the 49ers want. But because of that, there's a double-edged sword. Probably fits what other teams want as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. And Omenihu's market's going to be fascinating to me because, again, he had all those pressures. He was getting to the QB. He had the strip sack in the playoffs of Geno Smith. That turned that game around against the Seahawks. But the sack total, not quite, I think, where Omenihu is going to want it to be yet. I think there's going to be some team that pays him a lot of money thinking that they're paying for, so far unrealized potential. Good player who could be great, got the long arms. He has the build of a good edge rusher. Teams are going to pay for that. Going to be hard for the 49ers to retain that guy. But to give you guys an update, the 49ers have about $4 million in salary cap space. It's a complicated calculation that I've obviously made on my free agent sheet. With that cap space, the 49ers are going to get to work. They can't officially ratify contracts with guys under the other teams until Wednesday when the new league year starts and those contracts expire. But the 49ers can re-sign their own. And that's what they've done here the past few days. First with Colton McKivitz and now with Tashaun Gipson. Two big additions for the San Francisco 49ers. But this is really going to kick into overdrive tomorrow. So be sure that you're tuned in live, 9 a.m. Pacific. Legal tampering period will away. Let's take a look at some questions. Be sure to check out Tashaun Gipson free agency 2023 free agency tracker. We got Gipson, we've got McKivitz in there. Putting it into the comment section one more time. All right, I'm going to look at these questions. I'm in the. I see a lot of comments here, so I'm starting from the bottom. I'm not going to get way up to the top. If you have good, I didn't forget about the legal stuff with Omenihu. I mean, that's obviously separate right now. We don't have an update. That's going to be up to the district attorney in Santa Clara County to see what they do. All we can talk about at this point really is what the 49ers might do. So we'll wait for updates. You guys know, as soon as there's an update, I give it to you. We don't have an update yet. Trading Debo would kill $28 million. You can't trade Debo this offseason. That's a non-starter. We're talking about saving money to be, $4 million in space, $3 million in space. You can't just blow $28 million by trading Debo. There's a lot of money that you've paid him through signing bonus, through the extension last year that has not yet hit the salary cap. Minute you trade or cut Debo Samuel, all that money that's owed to him in future years accelerates, hits the cap at once. 49ers can't have that this year. I think the odds of Mosley returning are decent. I've heard that it's a clean ACL tear that it was, which is good news for Emmanuel Mosley. Might not be the best news for the 49ers trying to re-sign him because he was really good through the first 5 weeks last year. So, I mean, if the team says, hey, I think he's going to be good, let's re-sign him. We could give him some money the 49ers can't pay. That might be the path. But the 49ers are speaking of Charvarius Ward and Deommodore Lenoir as their starters. It'd certainly be nice if they could spruce up that cornerback depth with Emmanuel Mosley. Better late than never, for sure. You can always rewind the show. We're 28 minutes in. You can always rewind, watch those first 28 minutes in a little bit. Britt believes that Jimmy is going to an NFC team. Do you agree? Because I don't believe the Raiders are a good fit for him to succeed. One could argue the Raiders are not a good fit for anyone to succeed. But no, maybe they will be. And if Jimmy Garoppolo goes to the Raiders, that'd be crazy. I think it's going to be compelling theater regardless of where he goes. Who knows what the deal with Matthew Stafford is, even though the Rams are calling him a foundational piece. By the way, that started today. I was on the plane, so I didn't make any content. The Rams, how about that? Complete fire sale. We talk about the 49ers having $4 million in salary cap space. The Rams, way over the cap. They have to be compliant by Wednesday. And these guys, I mean, it's just a mess. Leonard Floyd gone, Bobby Wagner gone, and today they traded Jalen Ramsey for a pack of M&Ms. Third-round pick and a tight end coming back their way. Not a lot for a big money player in Jalen Ramsey. The Rams were openly talking about wanting a first-round pick. Guys, everybody says, not everybody, but a lot of people are like, ooh, the salary cap, not really real. It is very real. It killed the 49ers dynasty, 10 to 90s. It's killing a good stretch of Rams football here because they kept on mortgaging the future. Now they have to get under, and their only way under because they're out of normal restructures is to cut a lot of the weight from star players. And losing Jalen Ramsey is obviously going to hurt. Losing Wagner is obviously going to hurt. Losing Leonard Floyd is obviously going to hurt. Is the loss of Leonard Floyd the 49ers gain? Leonard Floyd would fit opposite Nick Bosa. We'll see. Those are the questions that we're going to ask during free agency. But the Rams definitely are not in a healthy salary cap spot, and they're cutting guys to get there. I believe they're up to 12 draft picks now. So the F them picks is out the window. The Rams are rebuilding the only way that you can rebuild in a cost sustainable fashion. The pendulum has swung back the other way. But as we look at this right now, the 49ers are the clear favorites in the NFC West. And the Seahawks, I mean, they were charging hard in 2022. But, Kyler Murray hurt in Arizona, new coaching staff. We'll see what they're up to. Rams certainly look like they're going to be entering a rebuilding year, or at least a year where they're all offense, sketchy defense, because they put all the money or kept all the money on the offensive side, and we'll see how that works out for them. Yeah, they're not going to – 49ers very likely will not pay Azeez Al-Shire. But that's why you have a player like Warren Burks. Signed him to a 2-year deal last year. Good depth. Remember, in a nickel package, which teams run 70% of the time, that third linebacker is only on the field about 30% of the time. I don't think that Caleb McGarry's a pipe dream. I think that the 49ers aren't paying Colton McKivitz as a first-string tackle. Are they going to try to moneyball that position, go a little cheap there, save money for something else? Maybe pair McKivitz with a draft pick, maybe trade up in the draft, get somebody in the second round that might be able to help you earlier on. It's hard to tell. The thing is, McGarry might go, who knows? Who knows if McGlinchey or McGarry goes for more money? McGarry had 3 iffy years with the Falcons, and then in his contract year, he's a first-round pick, by the way, the year after McGlinchey. So after 3 iffy years, McGarry showed up this year and was above average in both pass and run blocking. And that was an Arthur Smith scheme that they ran the ball a lot. So that had to impress the 49ers. Did he earn himself a big contract with a team like San Francisco, who thinks he might have a higher pass protecting ceiling than Mike McGlinchey? Do the 49ers value that tackle position in the short term so much they're going to want to pay somebody, even though it seems clear they don't want to pay Mike McGlinchey? I don't know. Those are questions that we find the answer to. I do know that they kept their options open because they saved money re-signing Colton McKivitz. McKivitz comes in, and we don't have the numbers yet for year to year, but he came in at $5.8 million for 2 years, which is $2.9 per one. The second round tender was $4.3 million. So you save a little bit of money there for Colton McKivitz. And with a 2-year deal, you could much more easily backload some of those costs. Yeah, Brian Smith says he'd be surprised if Jason Verrett didn't retire. I don't know. I don't have any information on that right now. But, just speaking from a human point of view, I might be surprised as well if he doesn't retire. Because, he's just dealt with so many gut-punching, big injuries. And, it's got to be really, really tough on the psyche at this point for Jason Verrett. Make sure to check out the Gipson article. It's up on the screen. I'm going to go through a few more questions. Poe can play center. Yes, and we're talking about Jake Brendel, but a name that I'm going to toss out is Keith Ishmael. He started 5. He's on the Niners roster. He's on the practice squad last year. Actually went to Sacred Heart Cathedral in San Francisco, was born at Oakland. Keith Ishmael is a player who has some NFL experience for Washington, who the 49ers are looking at as a center. So if I had to show you my depth chart, which I will right now, after speaking with John Lynch last week, this is what the center pecking order might look like. And I'm going to flip Ishmael and Poe. Well, I should even change Nick Zakelj. I think right now, if the season started right now and the 49ers had to be pressed into action, you would say Keith Ishmael first, Nick Zakelj second, Jason Poe third string. I think that's what it would look like. Colton McKivitz obviously has now taken over that top right tackle spot. We'll see who the 49ers bring in to compete because they obviously need a little bit more there. For center, they could re-sign Daniel Brunskill and be that utility Swiss Army knife. He's been the backup center in years past. So if they re-sign Brunskill right now and the season started tomorrow, I think Brunskill would be above Ishmael as your starting center. But just don't remember this name, Keith Ishmael. I think that's a name that people aren't talking about, but he has started 5 NFL games, and that is not nothing. That is definitely not nothing. McCrary Ball will slide in to replace Aziz. That's the 49ers' hope. Burks will also get his chance, but McCrary Ball is the most likely guy. Well, I mean, don't discount what Oren Burks brings to the 49ers in special teams. He's one of the better special teams players in the league. So as far as the third linebacker spot's got some experience, still under contract another year. You could bring McCrary Ball along in the Demetrius Flanagan-Foles spot because you're losing him too, or he's going to be an unrestricted free agent too. So I think it's a meritocracy. I think that McCrary Ball didn't play last year, wasn't on the active roster last year, but he could keep on working his way up the pecking order for the 49ers this season. I do have a third string tackle, but that's Alfredo Gutierrez. That's your international exception player the 49ers brought back for this offseason. You got Trent Williams, Leroy Watson, practice squad last year, Colton McKivitz, Jalen Moore. Maybe I could flip Moore and Watson, but who cares? Left tackle, right tackle. It's just a backup position. Obviously, Burford and Banks, and then I have Ishmael, Zakel, and Poe at those center spots. But, I'm sure the teams are calling about Brandon Ayuk. He's a good player. But I'm also very confident that the 49ers aren't interested in getting worse right now. Brandon Ayuk is their best man coverage beater. If you let go of Brandon Ayuk, again, you better find a nice replacement because that guy beats the other team's top corner more frequently than he loses to the other team's top corner. It's hard to cover Brandon Ayuk, and he helps everybody else stay open. So you would have to be paid handsomely in return for Brandon Ayuk if you are the San Francisco 49ers. I thought he was exceptional last year, his first 1,000-yard season. This is pretty cool. I just flew from Fresno to Nashville today. I had my engagement party yesterday in Fresno, went well, and here we have Wolf777 talking about living in Visalia and then moving to Fresno. Now he's in Chula Vista. Now he's down in the San Diego area. The Rams did not get a big haul for Jalen Ramsey at all. Third pick and a backup tight end. Not good for them. Not good for them. All right, tomorrow's when this stuff is going to start really blowing up. Oh, I got to tweet out an article right now. I haven't tweeted out what I said I was going to tweet out. So let's do that while all of you are right on here. You can watch me work just like you're going to do tomorrow, right? 9 a.m. Pacific time for the big legal tampering window opening. All right. This is how it works on Twitter. I'm sure most of you are familiar. Here, we could even run this on the screen. Let's have some fun with it. Anybody in Fresno, by the way, after the engagement party yesterday, we went to 5 Italian restaurant, like California Italian fusion. That was good. That's one of my favorite places in Fresno. All right, we're on the Twitter machine. Let's go. We've started a 49ers free agency tracker, which will update with analysis right after each transaction comes in over the next couple weeks. Check it out. Well, let's see. Tashaun Gipson and Colton McKivitz takes are ready. Boom. All right, so yeah, you can follow along. This free agency tracker is going to be updated. It's going to look like this. We're going to tweet it out. Should look fine. There it is. It is on the Twitter. You follow along there on The Athletic throughout this free agency period, and you'll be more up to date than through any other source. I promise you that. Scott says the O-line's been a weakness for a while. I don't think it was a weakness this past year. I think they've gotten a lot better last 2 years. The run blocking has always been decent. In 2019, they really gelled. They were above average pass protecting unit. We're talking top 10 in 21 and 22. The thing is, they weren't elite yet. They weren't good enough to win a Super Bowl yet. So the 49ers have been investing and improving at the offensive line position, but they still have more work to do. I think that's the key to really hammer. You can't just stop now. But it's not black and white. It's not like, oh, they're terrible up front. They haven't done anything. They've done a lot. Trent Williams is making record money. Aaron Banks is a second-round pick. They've developed the hell out of Jake Brendel. Spencer Burford is a valuable draft pick who did a good job this past year. And they used a first-rounder in 2018 on Mike McGlinchey. And now it looks like they're going to find a way to replace Mike McGlinchey. We'll see what path they take, but there's still work on the table for the 49ers here moving forward. How the 49ers going to play Bosa on Ayuk? Well, if you keep on asking that question, I'm not going to answer it. You asked like 7 times. Jeez. Do you think the 49ers ought to make moves like the Chiefs to get off expensive veterans? Or you mean like the Rams? It might be necessary when they have to pay the young players. Well, by then, you would hope that the expensive veterans, their deals might be expiring. And that's how the NFL works. It's a young man's league. Now, I get it. The 49ers veteran core that's getting paid is growing on a year-to-year basis. It's getting bigger and bigger on a year-to-year basis, right? So, but the cap is also getting bigger and bigger. League revenue is going up. Cap is expanding. 49ers so far have sustainably fit underneath that. But you got more guys left to pay. So as you pay those guys, does the cap keep on expanding? We'll see. Should. In 2020, it didn't because of the financial crisis that happened due to all those events in 2020. It's one of those things where you're just trying to stay ahead of the flood. You're trying to surf that wave. Some teams borrowed a little too much from the future, like the Rams. They have to blow things up. The 49ers so far are in a sustainable mode. And that sustainable mode has happened even though they have, some dead money on the books. They have $16 million of dead money this year. They're paying a lot to D Ford still. Some of the signings financially in the long term especially haven't worked out. But the 49ers are still churning forward successfully. Who do I think the week 1 starters at QB? Probably Trey Lance, I would think. I don't know. Brock Purdy. We have the prognosis now, internal brace. If he can be ready for week 1, then he starts. Is it likely that he's fully ready to go? That's going to depend on his rehab. Purdy obviously played better than Lance last season. But beyond that, nothing is written. So I'm just going to let it play out this offseason. Yep, you can't be elite at every position, even though some people want it to be that way. They wanted to play Madden ball. All right, cool, guys. Thank you, everybody, for joining the show today. It was fun. We talked about Tashaun Gipson, $2.9 million for Gipson. What a deal for the 49ers for safety. Had some top 2 metrics last year. All eyes now, Jimmy Ward. See if he comes back on a nickelback deal, if he goes elsewhere for more money on a safety deal. Talking about the 49ers financial situation entering the new league year. They have about $4 million in salary cap space. I will be live tomorrow when that legal tampering period opens. We're talking 9 a.m. Pacific time. All right, 9 a.m. Pacific. Be ready. It's going to be fun. I cannot wait for tomorrow. This is when the offseason really picks up. Again, the offseason tracker is what you need to be subscribed to on The Athletic. It's right here. We have 2 things in there. We have Tashaun Gipson and we have Colton McKivitz. And there's going to be a whole lot more in there as the 49ers get to work with their $5 million or $4 million, whatever it's going to be in salary cap space. All right, like the video, sub to the channel. We'll talk to everybody very soon. Thanks again. See you later.